The three of them walked out of the cinema. Erin went to get the car while April waited by the roadside with her son in her arms. Little Apple wanted to eat the cake, so April opened it and fed him 2 spoonfuls. Little Apple suddenly looked behind her and said, "Mom, there's a handsome uncle behind you who's watching you." April turned around and saw a man in an ordinary shirt standing in front of the convenience store. The light from the top of his head fell on his short black hair, and his beautiful eyes looked a little dreamy and absent-minded. The man was also staring at her. His eyes flashed with various emotions, including embarrassment, urgency, joy, and sadness. April stared at him for a while until the man walked to her hesitantly. He looked at her, then at the child beside her, and asked in an awkward tone, "April, is this your child? He's so big now." "Yes, he's going to primary school soon." April did not expect to meet Isaac again. She had not seen him since he went to prison. She used to hate him to the bone, but after he went to prison, she did not hate him anymore. Besides, she realized that if it were not for Isaac's past, she would not be as happy as she was now. "You got out of prison?" "Yeah," Isaac nodded. He said with mixed feelings. "I did well in prison, so I got out 2 years early. I'm sorry. You probably don't want to see me. I just went out to buy something." Erin, who had just driven over, suddenly saw a tall young man chatting up his wife. His chest tightened. There were too many crazy bees and butterflies these days. Erin hurriedly parked his car by the side of the road, got down from the car, and strode over. However, when he saw the man's face clearly, a dark look flashed across his eyes. "Isaac, weren't you in jail?" Isaac also noticed Erin. Although a few years had passed, Erin, who was 2 years older than him, did not seem to be affected by the passage of time. On the contrary, he was wearing dark gray pants and a black t-shirt, which made him look exceptionally handsome, and his facial features were cold. He stood side by side with April, which April, who used to be so beautiful, looked as soft and gentle as if she had been washed clean. A bit of envy rose in his heart, but it was only envy. He had brought this upon himself. The 2 men looked at each other and did not say anything. April had no choice but to explain. "He said that he did a good job, so he was released early." Erin tensed up like a lion who had been stabbed by a hedgehog. "The prison nowadays is too casual. He acts like he can be released to harm others. What's the use of being good? Can he change what he did? Can he make up for what others did for him? Do you believe that I can continue to sue you?" "I believe you." Isaac looked at him calmly. "But I've really changed." "Really?" Erin sneered. If he had changed, why did he still appear by his woman's side? He was trying to steal her. You used to pretend to be a good man and lied to April. Isaac felt sad. He had to admit that what had happened in the past was a thorn in his heart. April was not as sharp and angry as Erin. Instead, she held Little Apple's hand and said generously, "Since you're out, you should start over. Do you live near here now?" Isaac nodded slightly and said, "I have a small company nearby." "Good luck with your company. We're going home," April said with a faint smile. Erin immediately put his hand on April's body and said intimately, "Let's go, honey. Let's go to the car and eat the cake I bought for you." After saying that, he did not give them another chance to speak. He held April tightly and walked toward the car. Little Apple turned around and looked at Isaac with confusion, but he still hopped into the car with his parents. Isaac stood by the roadside and watched the 3 of them get into the SUV and drive away. Confusion flashed across his eyes, but he soon regained his clarity. Some things had really passed, and April and Erin were the people he could only look up to. However, this was good too. He would work hard and start over slowly. Fortunately, she was living a happy life now. The car was filled with a quiet atmosphere. Erin's face was very unpleasant. Really unpleasant. He did not understand how someone like Isaac could be released so early. Not only was he released, but he also showed up in front of him. The car stopped at an intersection. He turned to look at the woman behind him. April and Little Apple were eating cake happily, while Little Apple was munching on the cake. He asked curiously, "Mom, who's that handsome uncle? Has he been in prison before? He doesn't look like a bad guy."
"You're really your mom's son," Aaron sneered. "Your mom was as innocent and ignorant as you were, and then she was tricked into losing everything. Luckily, your dad came down from the sky like the Monkey King and saved your mom from fire and water."
Little Apple was stunned. "So, Mommy didn't love you at all. Did she marry you because she was grateful to you for saving her?" Aaron was so angry that he almost stepped on the brake. He didn't mean that by saying so much.
Does this kid know how to talk?
Looking at the furious look on his face, April almost burst into laughter. She couldn't help but reach out to touch Little Apple's ear, wondering why her son was so brilliant.
"April."
Seeing that his woman was smiling, Aaron put on a resentful look and said,
"I know you love me."
Little Apple grabbed his mother's skirt and said, "Daddy's love for Mom is so pathetic." Aaron took a deep breath and said helplessly,
"April, don't you think it's time to tell me that you love me?"
April rolled her eyes and ignored him. Aaron drove back to their house gloomily. April was the first one to walk into the bedroom. Little Apple was about to follow her into the bedroom, but his collar was suddenly pulled by someone. After that, he was dragged out of the bedroom.
"Go and ask Grandma to accompany you to your room and sleep there. Your mother and I need to have a heart-to-heart talk,"
Aaron said and closed the door in front of his son. Little Apple kicked the door angrily. Hearing the noise behind her, April turned around and found that her son had been shut outside the room. She glared at the man who was walking toward her and said, "You!" Before she could finish her words, Aaron's tall body approached her step by step. April had no choice but to step back and sit down on the sofa. She raised her head and glared at him. "What do you want? Don't think that I'll forgive you just because you bought me a glass of iced grapefruit."
"Do you think that my love for you is pathetic?" Aaron said angrily. "As a husband, I feel extremely insulted that my son despises me like that."
April was speechless. So that was what he had been keeping in his mind all this time.
"Say you love me."
Aaron placed his hands on both sides of the sofa beside her. His tone was overbearing and brutal. Seeing that she didn't say anything, he continued aggressively.
"Quickly say that you love me. You love me. You love me."
April was annoyed by his words. She put a pillow over his mouth and said, "If you want me to tell you that I love you, you should resolve our conflict first. With your wisdom, you do understand why I'm angry tonight, don't you?" Aaron frowned and asked,
"Are you talking about the trip?"
"Yes." April nodded seriously and said, "If you don't compromise and insist on going only to the seaside, I can only choose to go on a separate trip without you."
"Are you serious?"
Aaron's voice became heavy. April didn't say anything but continued nodding. However, after being married for a few years, she understood how couples should get along. So she thought for a while and added, "Actually, it's good for both of us to go anywhere. Isn't it good as long as we're by each other's side? I like to climb mountains and walk in the desert because I like the feeling of us helping each other while walking. I want to see not only the sea with you, but also the mountains, the snow, and the flowers. Although I can go with my parents, I also want you to be by my side." Aaron's eyes gradually lit up and he felt incredibly sweet. In the past, he didn't know much about it. He just wanted to see how April looked in her swimsuit. But now, he suddenly felt that he was shallow-minded.
"Babe, you should have told me this earlier. I can understand what you mean. I wanted to go to the beach with you, not only because I think you will wear less there, but I also feel that I look the most handsome in the water."
April's gaze on him softened a little. "No, I think you look handsome in every way." Aaron felt her words were sweet like he had just eaten a mouthful of honey. He felt that his wife was great. He reached out and hugged her. They exchanged seats and he let her sit on him.
"I'll go with you to Tibet, but you must be mentally prepared." Nagari's beautiful, but it's a tough trip. I don't mind bringing our son, but he might not be able to bear the journey. Your parents are too old. Just the two of us should go. As for Sylvia and her husband, they're newlyweds. Let's not disturb them. We'll go alone next time, okay?
All right, I didn't say that I must go with them. It's not good to disturb them. April wrapped her arms around his waist. In fact, she didn't want much. He just needed to learn to understand and give in to certain aspects.
The main thing is that I don't want them to disturb us, Aaron said in a low voice, then kissed her hard.
April wrapped her arms around his neck and he carried her to the bed. Suddenly, his body stiffened. A moment later, he let go of her and searched for something in the drawer beside her. What are you doing? April was confused. It was rare for him to stop suddenly.
I'm looking for a condom, Aaron said seriously.
April blinked, thinking that she had heard wrong. Didn't you say that you wanted to have a daughter?
I've decided I'm not in a hurry, and I don't want to be jealous of others.
Aaron pursed his lips and a complicated look appeared on his face.
We're fine like this. I don't have a daughter to spoil, but I can spoil you.
April was speechless. April frowned, got off the bed, touched Aaron's forehead, and asked, Hubby, what's wrong? He didn't seem like him at all. He hadn't said much in the past few days, but she knew that he wanted to have a daughter. Especially after seeing Winnie pregnant. He was so envious. In fact, she was also a little envious of them, so she agreed to it. Now she wanted to have the baby, but he didn't want to? Was he trying to play a joke with her? Aaron silently approached her and held her tightly in his arms.
With Little Apple, we don't have much privacy. Would we lose more time together with another baby? Just like today at the movie theater, we were separated by a seat. We'll be separated by 2 seats if we have another child. April, life's too short. I just want to have a life with you for a while longer. I still have a lot of things I want to do with you in this life. I like you more than having a daughter. Let's talk about conceiving a second child later.
April felt like crying. No wonder he suddenly sat down beside her with Little Apple in his arms tonight. She knew that he loved her, but she didn't know that after so many years of marriage, he had never gotten over it. She began to reflect on herself. Perhaps after the marriage, she paid more attention to her child. Hubby, you're right. We're not in a hurry. I love you. Don't take what Little Apple said tonight to heart. He's just a child. She smiled and kissed his lips.
I don't mind,
Aaron snorted. His body was burning hot from her kiss. He held his breath for a while, then pushed her away and said,
I'm going to take a cold shower. I don't have a condom at home. I'll buy it tomorrow.
April looked at his uncomfortable look and lay on the bed with a smile. Aaron, you don't have to do this. I will not get pregnant that easily.
I have to.
Aaron went into the bathroom. April looked in the direction of the bathroom. She suddenly thought of Isaac, whom she had met that day, as well as how she and Aaron had gotten to know each other and had fallen in love with each other. She was filled with emotions. It was the eve of the summer holiday. Sylvia had finally gotten her annual leave. That was the first time that she and Jack were going on a serious wedding trip. Both of them took each other very seriously. Mr. Maxwell also took the trip seriously. The day before the trip, he was very worried.
Is it okay for the 2 of you to go?
I remember the last time when Mr. Kipling went to Kailash.
I accompanied him and his wife. Both of them were not good at traveling. They didn't know how to take care of themselves.
It's okay. Jack shook his head seriously.
Sylvia will take good care of me.
Mr. Maxwell sighed. He could only sigh at how lucky his master was that he had a wife to take care of him even after he got married. Because it was a long journey to Nagari, and the weather was cold, both of them prepared 2 big luggage of clothes. However, when they were about to go out, Sylvia suddenly noticed 2 extra pieces of luggage.
You are...
Jack quickly explained.
I brought 2 astronomical telescopes with a tripod and an equinox instrument.
Aren't you tired? Sylvia blinked. So the two of them were going to bring so many large boxes to Nagari? She began to doubt if the trip would go smoothly. I'm not tired. Jack shook his head, his eyes shining with excitement. I didn't bring any clothes when I was in Kailash. I only carried binoculars. Sylvia had nothing to say. Fortunately, both of them rented a car and traveled to Lhasa. It was nighttime when they took the plane to Lhasa. The temperature difference was huge, so Sylvia immediately put on a black jacket with extra fleece. Jack was also wearing black. They had bought it as a couple. After putting it on, Jack was elated. It was the first time he had worn a couple's outfit with Sylvia. Sylvia, you look so good in this. You look so handsome. Sylvia was instantly choked with the words that she was about to say. Was it nice to praise a woman handsome? Sylvia, let me help you with your luggage. Jack didn't notice her mood at all. He took the big luggage from the luggage collecting belt and pushed 3 pieces of luggage by himself, while Sylvia pushed 1. He didn't notice that many tourists who came to Tibet were secretly watching him. Sylvia did notice. She had to admit that Jack looked quite cool and handsome in his jacket. Besides, there was a scar on his face. His skin was not as fair as before, and he looked a little mischievous and masculine. Even she, who saw him every day, was attracted to him again. Tonight, she would strip off his clothes personally, Sylvia thought to herself. After the both of them got into the car and arrived at the hotel, Sylvia went straight to take a shower. The air conditioner was on in the room, and she had purposely changed into a very sexy black night dress. She even sprayed a faint scent of iris flowers. After all, that was the first night of the honeymoon, so there should be some atmosphere. However, as soon as she came out, she saw Jack carrying a pair of white binoculars and preparing to go out. What are you? Sylvia was puzzled. Jack was very excited. I just asked the owner. We can go up to the top floor. The weather's rather good tonight. I want to go watch the stars. You should rest early. Sylvia was speechless. Probably because he had not been to such a high altitude for a long time, Jack carried the binoculars and tripod and went out happily. Sylvia lowered her head and looked at the black night dress that she had carefully put on. She silently clenched her teeth. Did the stars look better than her? Did the stars smell better than her? Depressed, she climbed into bed alone and decided to ignore him. In the next few days, she would not wear this night dress unless he begged her. Otherwise, he could forget about it. Suddenly, arriving at a strange place, Sylvia was very tired, but she could not fall asleep. She waited and waited until midnight, but she did not see Jack return. Sylvia was very angry. She wanted to lock the door and let him stay outside in the cold wind for the whole night. However, it was his first day out after all. It would be bad if he caught a cold. Especially since this was the Highland, they might have to go back home. So, she let it go. However, she was angry and couldn't sleep. She put on her coat and went to the roof to look for him. On the empty roof, Jack sat alone on a small stool with a tripod. No one knew what he was doing. He looked at the night sky alone for a while, then took a notebook to write something down. He did notice her when she walked over. Sylvia saw that his notebook was full of data. It was so dense that she could not understand it anyway. He was so serious that he didn't notice it when she walked in front of him until Sylvia leaned over to look through his binoculars. What exactly are you looking at? Sylvia, why are you here? Jack quickly stood up and held her shoulder. Do you want to see it? Come, I can teach you. Let's look at the moon first. He quickly adjusted the binoculars. It wasn't that Sylvia hadn't played with a telescope when she was young, but she had never seen one that she could see so clearly. The moon wasn't hazy, and its color varied from dark to light. She was curious at first, but soon lost interest. Jack, on the other hand, said with interest, It's not that pleasing to watch from here. It's not spacious enough. We'll see it clearly when we get to Nagari. Yes, but it's already 1 o'clock. We still have to go to Potala Palace tomorrow. Should we go back to sleep? Sylvia sighed in her heart. She was angry at first, but she could not stand in the way of his dreams since he was focused on science.
Oh, it's already so late?
Jack was startled, then he touched his head apologetically.
I'm sorry, Sylvia. I didn't expect time to pass so quickly. You shouldn't have waited for me. You should sleep first next time.
I want to sleep too, but you'll still wake me up when you come in at night without a room card, Sylvia said unhappily. And what's your main purpose for the trip this time?
To observe the stars,
Jack said without thinking. He had been undercover for the past 3 years and had not observed the stars seriously for a long time.
Sylvia grits her teeth.
He had the guts to say it.
Sensing that Sylvia's gaze was getting more and more strange,
Jack was stunned for a few seconds and quickly reacted. He stuttered,
And to accompany you,
Sylvia sneered. Don't you think it's too late to say that?
Jack lowered his head dejectedly. I feel that I haven't been to Tibet for a long time. It's a pity that I don't observe the stars in a place like this. But I'm mainly here to accompany you. I'll observe the stars at night and accompany you during the day. None will be neglected.
Sylvia sighed softly, feeling depressed. She thought to herself, what did he not neglect? He was neglecting her nightdress, all right. Did he know how heavy a nightdress was when she brought it from Rosewood City? You can't stay up until midnight. Besides, it's very cold in Tibet and there's still a long time to go. If you don't rest well, you'll catch a cold easily. At that time, you won't be able to hold on even if you go to Nagari, let alone Kailash. Jack was stunned by her words and finally nodded.
Sylvia, what you said makes sense. I'd forgotten about this. I'm not going to watch it anymore. Let's go back.
Both of them returned to their room. Jack went to take a shower while Sylvia lay on the bed. She was not worried about anything and fell asleep in a short while. The next day, she was woken up by a warm breath. She opened her eyes and the blanket was pulled down to her waist. Jack stared at her as if he was looking at a delicious meal.
Sylvia, I didn't wake you up on purpose. It was an accident.
Could it be an accident with a hungry look in the eyes? Sylvia rubbed her sleepy eyes and said lazily, You have to look carefully. I'm not a star and I'm not the moon. Jack blinked, feeling a little confused. He didn't care about that now, but he felt quite uncomfortable.
Sylvia, I miss you.
After he said that, he rubbed his furry head against her cheek. Sylvia suddenly thought of Jackie at home. They really could soften her heart by rubbing at her. However, the nightdress issue from last night woke her up instantly. She pushed his head away. Get up early and go to Potala Palace. Get out of the way. Jack was pushed to the side by her. He was stunned. It had probably been a long time since he had been treated so rudely by Sylvia. He covered his body with the quilt. Sylvia gave him a cold glance. If you don't change your clothes, I'll go to Potala Palace alone later.
It's not fun going alone, Jack said softly.
That's probably not true. Maybe I can have a romantic encounter. Sylvia pretended to be flirtatious and brushed her hair. A good-looking person like me will have romantic encounters wherever I go. After she said that, she opened her suitcase and deliberately took out a denim shirt to put on. She looked fashionable and youthful. Jack quickly got up. He didn't dare to delay any longer in case he was left behind by Sylvia, but he was still not very happy. During breakfast, he kept nagging.
Sylvia, since you're married, you should behave yourself. Next time, don't say things like having a romantic encounter. I'll be sad and angry.
Sylvia watched him talk seriously while eating her Tibetan noodles. She didn't say a word. Both of them stayed in Lhasa for 2 days. On the third day, they went to Namso. When they reached the lakeside, there were cows, sheep, and snow sparrows everywhere. Sylvia looked at the endless lake and the snow-covered mountains in the distance. She felt that they were incomparably beautiful. As a tourist, she admired them for a while and began to take photos everywhere. Because the scenery was incredibly beautiful, any photo she took would be a professional picture. They were very beautiful. Basically, she had taken photos from 360-degree angles a few times before she finally looked for Jack to take a photo of herself. In the end, she only found Jack after searching for a long time. He was squatting on the ground, studying a rock. Could this be a meteorite? Sylvia ran over and found that he was serious. She could not help but ask. After all, they had been married for some time. She listened to him talk about all kinds of meteorites and knew the price of meteorites. Where's the meteorite from? The moon or Mars? Jack looked back blankly. No, I just feel that this rock is a bit like the limestone formed by geology tens of millions of years ago. Sylvia. Since when do you know about geology? I guessed, Jack said. It's a bit like the rock my mom put in her collection room. Anyway, I don't know what gift to give her, so I might as well pick up a rock and bring it back to her. Sylvia was completely speechless. If her mom was the same, wouldn't she save a lot of money? She sighed. Do you think it was that easy to pick up stones from tens of millions of years ago? Picking it up anywhere by the lake? Many tourists usually come here. No one else knows. They don't even know the origin of Nomso's crust. Let me tell you, this lake was formed tens of millions of years ago. Jack stuffed the stone into his pocket. But if it's not, then let it be. Anyway, I brought my thoughts to her. I spent a long time searching by the lake just now. Sylvia was silent for a while, then asked, Are you going to find a meteorite for your dad later? I can distinguish the meteorite myself, Jack answered seriously. But I'll pay attention when I go to Nagari. What else could she say? That was probably how it was to marry a scientist. Seeing that Jack was going to continue his search, she quickly handed her phone to him. These are the photos I took just now. What do you think? After Jack patiently flipped through each photo, he sincerely praised Sylvia. Sylvia, your photography skills are amazing. I saw that the photographers in those photo exhibitions took almost the same photos as you. Sylvia was quite happy to be praised. That was the kind of praise she wanted. Come, take some photos of me. Take a good one. I'll post it later. After she said that, she began to pose in various poses. Jack took 7 to 8 photos in one go. Sylvia was not satisfied at all after looking at it. Can you take a better photo of me? This one makes my face look so big, and this one makes my legs look fat. Jack disagreed. No, I think every photo of you is beautiful. The scenery is not even as beautiful as you. Sylvia looked up at the sky and sighed. Although he said so, she still did not have the courage to post such photos. Sylvia, you have to have confidence in yourself, Jack encouraged her. Aren't you a very confident person? You're right, Sylvia nodded tearlessly. She was a confident person, but she was made to lose her confidence. After that, Sylvia gave up on letting Jack take photos. Instead, she found an angle to take a selfie. Looking at her selfie, Jack suddenly realized that it was rare for the two of them to travel. He shouldn't be obsessed with picking up stones and looking at the stars. He should take more travel photos. So, he secretly took out his phone and started to take photos of Sylvia. When it was time for dinner in the evening, Jack started to post the pictures online. Sylvia only saw Jack's pictures after she had checked into the inn. She almost threw up. He posted pictures in one go, and he updated 9 photos in each post. Every photo had nothing to do with beauty. There were photos of her secretly taking selfies with her phone, pouting and acting cute. There were also photos of her putting on a scarf and putting on all sorts of postures. In short, she looked like she had a big face or was old-fashioned. If he couldn't take a good photo of her, then so be it. The beautiful scenery behind her looked vulgar after she zoomed in on herself. What made her even more speechless was that in his new post was still, "My most beautiful wife." Below the post, Aaron commented, "You have the nerve to say that she's beautiful after taking such photos."
I know that my sister isn't pretty, but she's not that ugly. Xavier. Are you sure you're not slandering my sister-in-law?
April. Did Sylvia know that you posted these photos? Mr. Maxwell.
Mrs. Kipling looks very plump in your photos.
Sylvia wanted to cry, but she couldn't.
Sylvia, stop looking.
Jack noticed that she was staring at his phone, so he held her hand in embarrassment.
It's my first time showing my happiness online. Don't laugh at me.
Sylvia quietly raised her head and asked him, Have you looked at your post? Jack shook his head in confusion. Take a look. Sylvia patted his shoulder heavily. I'll deal with you after you're done. Jack's heart trembled at her words. He lowered his head and roughly browsed through everyone's messages. He raised his head to comfort her.
Sylvia, those people have no taste. They don't understand your beauty.
You have it then? Sylvia asked with a fake smile.
Jack gulped. I understand. You're good-looking in every way. You're perfect to me. I can't even tell which part of you isn't good-looking.
When did this guy become so good at talking? However, these words he just said had temporarily extricated him from the crisis. After a long period of silence, Jack raised his hand.
I'm telling the truth, I swear.
Sylvia exhaled. Delete the photos.
This is my first time showing my happiness,
Jack whispered. He couldn't bear to be deleted the first time. I've reposted some photos to you. You can repost them again, Sylvia said.
Okay.
Jack could only do this. He deleted all the pictures he had posted before. Sylvia had sent him a lot of photos. They were selfies. They were beautiful, but their expressions were almost all the same, and they were overly beautiful. He felt that they were not as natural and vivid as the ones he had taken. However, in order to prevent Sylvia from being unhappy, he silently buried his thoughts in his heart and quietly posted them. When Sylvia saw his post, she was slightly satisfied. Although she knew that her relatives would criticize him all at once again, it was still better than those ugly photos being posted. At night, Jack naturally went out to watch the stars. With her previous experience, Sylvia was calm now. She gave him the room card and went to bed early. It was not until the fourth day that the two of them officially drove to Nagari. They took turns driving on the road. For safety reasons, both of them did not dare to rush and took their time. Fortunately, the scenery on the road was very beautiful, but the environment of the country where they slept at night was too bad. On the afternoon of the sixth day, Jack had just driven for the whole morning. He was curled up in the back and sleeping in a daze when the car suddenly stopped. He opened his eyes and saw an SUV parked in front of the deserted road. A man and a woman were standing in front of the car and waving helplessly. A man was lying down under the car, repairing it.
What's wrong?
Jack rubbed his eyes and asked sleepily.
Their car must have broken down. They seemed to be asking for a ride or something.
Sylvia unbuckled her seatbelt.
No, Jack said without thinking. This is our car.
Sylvia glanced at him amused. Although Tibet is well managed now, it's still not safe in such a remote place where there might be robbery or even rape cases. Jack blinked and said innocently,
That's none of my business. It's fine as long as they don't rob us.
Sylvia choked.
I can ignore it, but I'm a police officer after all.
Let's take a look first. Sylvia opened the window and the man and woman walked over. When they got closer, they realized that both of them were quite young. The girl was only in her early 20s and the boy should also be in his early 20s. Both of them were pretty good looking. Both of them were stunned when they saw a woman driver.
Hello, we're tourists from Kailash. But the car suddenly broke down on the way. Can we take a ride with you? We can pay for the ride. It doesn't matter if it's a little more expensive, the man said helplessly. The car will take less than 3 hours to repair. I'm afraid we won't be able to reach the town by nightfall, so we can only sleep in the wilderness. I heard that there are wolves in this place at night."
Sylvia frowned. She had heard about wolves in this area. "How many of you need a ride?"
"The two of us," the boy said. "The driver has to wait for the rescue car to arrive. They won't be going ahead. They have to return to the previous town to repair the car. When we are in Tarchin and are about to return, they will arrange for the car to send us back."
What he meant was that both of them had to follow them all the way to Tarchin, but the place was not far either. They should be able to reach there the next day. Sylvia hesitated for a moment and said, "Let me see your ID cards." The two of them showed her their ID cards, and Sylvia instantly memorized their names. One of them was called Zach. He was 24 years old this year, and the other one was Josie. She was 21 years old. She had already guessed the situation and asked, "Did the two of you get to know each other by carpooling together on the way to Kailash?" Jack and Josie looked at each other, and surprise flashed in their eyes. A moment later, Zach nodded and smiled.
"Ma'am, you saw through it with one look. We met in Lhasa."
Sylvia thought to herself, Josie was careless. A girl in her early 20s dared to casually carpool with others to go to a remote place like Kailash. Wasn't she afraid that the man with her was going to commit a crime with the driver? Looking at this Zach, looked honest and well-behaved. However, from his eyes, one could tell that he often flirted with girls. Sometimes she was annoyed that these young girls did not know the danger in this world. However, as a police officer, she had to help them to the end to prevent any accidents from happening. "All right, get in the car. Zach will sit in front and Josie will sit in the back." Jack was quite unhappy when he heard that. He quickly popped his head out from behind. "Darling." He couldn't understand how Sylvia had arranged it. How could she let a boy sit in the front with her? Moreover, the person was quite young. Therefore, he had to call her darling loudly to let these two people know about their relationship. Only then did Zach and Josie see him clearly from behind. Josie was especially stunned for a moment. She had only vaguely seen a man sleeping behind her, but she didn't expect him to be so delicate and clean, especially those eyes. It was as if he had been cleansed by spring rain. She had originally thought that Zach was considered handsome, but compared to the man in front of her, he was instantly much inferior. Sylvia's heart skipped a beat. How could she not see Josie's momentary loss of focus? She pondered for a moment and smiled. All right, I know you don't like men sitting with me. Josie, sit in front with me." Jack didn't say anything else. However, he felt that the most appropriate solution for Sylvia was to ask him to sit in the front. 2 extra people suddenly appeared in the spacious car. Jack didn't like it and felt uncomfortable. However, he also understood that because Sylvia was a police officer, she always felt that she had an obligation to protect the safety of every citizen. However, Josie and Zach were talkative. They warmed up the atmosphere along the way, especially Josie. She was especially talkative. "Ma'am, why do you want to go to Kailash? Don't tell me that you want to go on a pilgrimage too." "To travel, not to go on a pilgrimage," Sylvia said calmly. "I don't believe in that. Do you believe in that?" "We don't either. We just have a yearning in our hearts and want to go take a look," Josie said sentimentally. "Also, to cleanse our hearts." The corners of Sylvia's mouth twitched. She didn't understand the thoughts of young people these days. Perhaps she was old. Zach smiled and said, "Josie, it's too childish of you to say these things in front of Ma'am. I can tell that she has gone through a lot of things, so she doesn't believe in these things. By the way, ma'am, what is your job?" After he said that, he deliberately flipped over the blanket and looked up, and showed a look of, "Do you know what I mean?" Sylvia was still annoyed by the nightdress matter. She said lazily, "You've already come to a place like Tibet. Why are you still thinking about that kind of thing? Didn't you hear what the little girl said? Cleanse your heart? My heart has been cleansed, and I have no desires. I feel like I can go home and become a nun." Jack was so anxious that he didn't know what to do. He was panicking. "That's what a little girl would say. You're not. You have a family. If you want to become a nun, I'll go and become a monk." Sylvia chuckled. Now he knew how to talk. All right, I won't joke with you anymore. After driving for so long, I'm really tired. If you want to look at the stars, go ahead. Put on more clothes. It's only a few degrees outside. After saying that, Sylvia covered herself with a blanket and went straight to sleep. Jack sat alone in a daze for a while. He originally wanted to do something with Sylvia tonight and not see the stars. It seemed like there was no other way. He had no choice but to carry the telescope out again. It had to be said that Nagari was more suitable for stargazing. Jack was holding a pen and calculating when a soft girl's voice suddenly came from behind. Sir, what are you doing? Is this a telescope? It's so unbelievable. Jack automatically filtered out her voice and continued to write the formula seriously. Only when a figure blocked him did he raise his head unhappily. You're too big, don't block me. Josie was completely choked. That was the first time someone had said she was too big. No, I'm only about 45 kilograms. Don't block me, Jack repeated. Josie hurriedly moved away. She bent down and said, Sir, don't be angry. I just came upstairs and looked at the stars. I feel that the starry sky here was very close to us and very beautiful. I didn't expect to meet you. We might have had some misunderstanding between us. I didn't know that you had been driving for a long time in the afternoon. That's why I spoke and disturbed you. I'm sorry. I'm studying something. Don't disturb me. Jack was racking his brain to write a formula. There were always people chattering in his ear. All right, then I won't disturb you. You do your work. I'll look at you from the side. Josie stared at his handsome face under the moonlight. It had been a long time since she had seen such a good-looking man, especially with the scar on his face. Why did such a person get married? But she was not worse than his wife. His wife was older than her, and she was not as sweet and charming as her. However, she waited for a long time. When she saw that Jack kept sketching in the notebook and completely ignored her, seeing that her neck was about to freeze, she leaned over to the telescope out of boredom. She had never seen such an advanced telescope before. It looked completely different from the one she had seen before. However, just as she touched it, Jack's roar suddenly sounded from the side. Who told you that you can touch my telescope? He coldly pushed Josie away. This is my most private treasure. I forbid anyone to touch it other than my wife. I'm sorry? Josie was shocked. His handsome and elegant face suddenly became fierce because of the scar. I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't touch it, and it did not even break. Don't you know that you shouldn't touch others' things? Jack was in no mood to stay there anymore. He packed the telescope and went back. Josie stomped her feet. She didn't expect this man to be so difficult to get along with. Sylvia, who was half asleep, suddenly felt something cold roll into her bed. She trembled a little and opened her eyes. When she saw Jack, she yawned lazily. Why are you back? I met an annoying woman, Jack complained. Oh. Sylvia was too sleepy. She turned over and fell asleep again. Jack pouted. He wanted to complain more about it. The next day, as Sylvia was looking at the snowy mountains in the distance and slowly brushing her teeth, she suddenly recalled something. After I fell asleep last night, did you tell me that some woman was bothering you? Jack lifted his head from his suitcase gloomily. Sylvia was puzzled. There is even a woman bothering you in such a deserted country? Josie from yesterday, Jack pursed his lips. She even touched my telescope. Sylvia, let's go today without them. I don't like them. Sylvia raised her eyebrows. She was condemning silently. The girls these days didn't know how to avoid suspicion by not flirting with a married man. What else did she say? I don't know. She was chattering. After Jack finished speaking in a low voice, he suddenly raised his head. Sylvia, I think she has thoughts about flirting with me. Sylvia was shocked. The way she looked at Jack was strange. Has the sun risen from the west? He could even read a woman's mind. Why didn't he notice that his childhood friend that he had been doing research together every day had a secret crush on him? Don't you believe me? Jack was nervous. In fact, he was making it up because he didn't like Zach. Zach talked too much and kept talking to Sylvia. So sometimes Sylvia didn't even have the chance to talk to him. He had to think of a way to make her have a misunderstanding of them. You can even tell what others are thinking about you now? Sylvia smiled. You used to be dumb in this kind of matter. Sylvia, why are you so calm? Jack frowned. Haven't you always been overbearing and stingy? You won't allow any woman to have improper thoughts about me, and you don't allow me to get close to other women. You've changed. I admire your fierce look in the past more. Sylvia lowered her head and spat out the toothpaste in her mouth. She rolled her eyes. Don't worry, I've seen through Josie's little tricks from the beginning. I've been in the police station for so many years and have seen all kinds of people. She has an obedient and innocent appearance, but she has a wild and flirtatious heart in her bones. And that Zach? His mouth is sweet, but to put it bluntly, he has a glib tongue. I dare say that they must have had an intimate relationship. Jack was stunned and his jaw dropped. He only dared to frame them secretly, but he didn't expect Sylvia to be even sharper. No way, they are still so young. Sylvia was speechless. How is 21 or 24 to be considered young? It's you who is old. Jack pouted gloomily and whispered, You talk as if you're not much older than them. What did you say? Sylvia's dangerous gaze swept towards him. No, nothing. Jack hurriedly shook his head. Sylvia, did they have an intimate relationship? Then why aren't they dating? Are you guessing blindly? There's a type of young men and women called friends with benefits. They only have an intimate relationship and don't need to be responsible for it. They also don't need to date each other. Sylvia said calmly, I said this because when we were chatting yesterday, although Zach hid it well, his gaze was a little frivolous. If he met Josie, who was 21 years old, he would get physical with her. And Josie was able to seduce you in the middle of the night without avoiding suspicion, which means that this girl is not well behaved. When these two people get together, they will make out even on the first night. Jack was dumbfounded. He didn't expect Sylvia to think badly of the two of them, but that was what he wanted to see, so he quickly nodded. I think it makes perfect sense from the way you put it. Then we can't let them follow us. The air in the entire car will be polluted by them. Sylvia shook her head and sighed. No matter what their character is, I shouldn't leave them just like that as long as they did not do anything bad. It's like when the police catch a criminal. We know that the criminal is extremely evil, but we have to protect the criminal before the law decides. Jack was instantly depressed, but he quickly understood. That was probably Sylvia's professional habit. Although it was only a few days, he seemed to have understood Sylvia a little better. Sylvia, you're a good policewoman. The police have to protect the citizens. Sylvia lowered her head and began to wash her face. As she washed, someone suddenly hugged her from behind. Jack whispered in her ear, But you have to protect yourself too. I know. The reason I didn't let you sit in the front with me yesterday was that I was worried that they would rob or steal from us. I feel more at ease with you watching from behind. Sylvia felt a warmth in her heart and turned around to kiss him. Jack suddenly understood everything. At 9 o'clock in the morning, the four of them set off for Tarchin. Jack compromised with Sylvia's arrangements after her explanation. After arriving at Tarchin in the evening, Sylvia directly said to Josie and Zach, Since we've arrived at our destination and are going to start strolling around the mountain tomorrow, let's part ways from here. Don't, Zach quickly said. Strolling around the mountains is a tough journey. It will be safer with more people around and we can look after each other. Jack frowned. He was worried that Sylvia would agree again, so he was a little anxious. Sylvia said calmly at once, Sometimes having more people is a burden. We're newlyweds, so we prefer to be alone. Besides, to be honest, I saw that Josie was a little short of oxygen when she came here. She took in a few bottles of oxygen on the way. So I advised her to not go up more. We cannot bear the consequences if anything happens. After saying that, Sylvia dragged Jack to rent a tent. Summer was the peak season for tourism, so there were very few rooms. There were no rooms for those who came late, so they could only rent a tent and sleep outside. That night, Sylvia wrapped herself in a sleeping bag and ate beef jerky in the tent. Jack went to the car to get coconut water. About 5 minutes later, he came in with a pile of things. There was something stuffed in his jacket and there was a flashlight inside, which made his face slightly red. "Sylvia, this?" Jack took out a black nightgown with a sling from his jacket. "When did you bring it? I haven't seen you wear it before and you hid it so deep inside. If I hadn't gone to look for something, I wouldn't have found it." Sylvia's expression froze. Then she expressionlessly picked up a bottle of coconut water and opened it. "I wore it." Jack was at a loss. The corner of Sylvia's mouth twitched coldly. "I wore it on the first night I came to Tibet." It was so infuriating. She had dressed so beautifully that day, but he did not notice it. Jack was still at a loss. He was so regretful. Why hadn't he noticed it? "Then why didn't you wear it again?" Sylvia's jaw dropped and almost blurted out the truth. However, she hesitated for a moment, afraid that it would affect his love for stargazing. After all, she couldn't stop mankind's exploration of the universe. It got colder and colder. There wasn't enough heat in the room. Would I freeze to death if I wore that? Jack pursed his lips and thought for a while. It was indeed so. He felt cold even though he was in his fleece jacket today. He looked down at the black nightdress in his hand in frustration. He regretted it so much. Why did he only pay attention to the stars back then? At least he should have gone to look at the stars after admiring the dress. Sylvia saw that he had lowered his head and did not say anything. She felt that she had finally vented her anger. She drank up the coconut water, ate the beef jerky and biscuits, then laid down and decided to sleep. "You're sleeping so early," Jack said bitterly. "It's not even 9 o'clock now. Can you fall asleep?" Sylvia sighed. "What else can I do if I don't sleep? It's -1 degree outside. I'll freeze to death if I go out. I can't use my phone and I can't watch TV." The more she talked, the more she felt like crying. After coming to Nagari, she felt as if she were living the life of an old man. "Sylvia, are you regretting?" Jack suddenly curled up beside her and whispered. It wasn't that he didn't notice that she was sometimes in a bad mood these days, especially when she had no signal on her phone. She often lost her temper. Regretting what? Coming to Tibet? Coming to Kailash? Jack stared into her eyes. "I came here once with my mother and her team. I know it's tough, and it was 7 or 8 years ago. The signal was even worse and the environment was even worse. When I came, many roads weren't repaired. Maybe I should have decided to come to Kailash on my own because I wanted to watch the stars. Actually, we should have just traveled to Lhasa. I can come here myself next time." "Don't say such silly things. What kind of person am I? I'm a policewoman. I've been through all kinds of hardships. It's just a trip to Nagari. Others can come. Why can't I?" Sylvia was afraid that he would let his imagination run wild, so she quickly denied it. "I'm just not used to having no signal on my phone. I can't check my messages or watch the news. I don't even know what major events have happened in the past few days since I've been away. Has my favorite star gotten married? Have the stocks I bought increased recently? Has my brother and sister-in-law conceived a second child?" Jack scratched the back of his head. They'd only been in Nagari for a few days. How was it possible that so many things had happened? "Sylvia, aren't you worrying a little too much? I hope that you only think of me now, at least during the time we're in Tibet." His voice sounded a little wronged and innocent. Sylvia suddenly felt guilty. It was probably because she had been too tired and suffered these past few days that she had forgotten what kind of feelings both of them had before departing. She turned around and quickly hugged his waist. "Don't let your thoughts run wild. I never regretted coming with you. I've been single for so many years, and it's not easy for me to finally spend time with my hubby. Although the journey is a little tough, Being with you is always good. It's cold now. But who says that curling up in a sleeping bag isn't a kind of happiness? Who says that supporting each other in difficult times isn't happiness? Who knows? Jack's eyes grew brighter and sweeter as he listened. He lowered his head and hugged Sylvia as he said sweetly, "Sylvia, what you said makes sense. Although there's no signal here, we can still do something else to pass the time." "You're not talking about me accompanying you to see the stars, right?" Sylvia's face stiffened, and she shook her head vigorously. I'm not going. It's freezing." "I'm not talking about seeing the stars." Jack was anxious, and his ears were slightly red. "It's much more interesting than seeing the stars." After he finished speaking, he silently pulled down the zipper of his jacket. Sylvia instantly understood everything. She silently rolled her eyes at Jack. How had he treated her that night in Lhasa? Was she going to give it to him if he wanted it now? Did he think she, Sylvia, would easily give in? Moreover, it was such cold weather, and they were in a tent. It was simply freezing. "It's cold." Sylvia's body shrank into the quilt with a look of resistance on her face. Jack was anxious. "It will not be cold when the two of us are together. We can keep each other warm, and we won't get out of our sleeping bags." "Sylvia, come on. We'll have to sleep in the temple tomorrow and the day after. We can't." After saying that, Sylvia turned her back towards Jack. Jack pouted. In the end, he could only lie down and chant a prayer silently. The next day, both of them began to stroll around the mountain. Because they had to spend the night on the mountain to watch the stars, Jack still had to carry his telescope and some food on his back. His luggage was quite heavy. Sylvia's physical strength was rather good, but after walking through the Zyre Temple, the altitude was getting higher and higher. She was getting a little tired. When she looked back, Jack was somehow left behind. He was holding a climbing stick in his hand and was panting. Sylvia stopped for a while and waited for him to approach her. Jack was walking unsteadily, and he couldn't speak clearly. "Sylvia, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I wasn't this tired the last time I came here." After saying that, he sat down on the roadside to rest. Sylvia was speechless. He was young when he last came here, okay? How could his strength be compared to before? "Fortunately, I made you go to the gym to exercise recently, or else you wouldn't be able to hold on from the foot of the mountain." Yes. Jack panted as he drank the Red Bull. I still need to work out. Staying in the lab always and not exercising is a problem." "Rest for a while," Sylvia comforted him. 10 minutes later, both of them went on again. After reaching an altitude of 5,000 meters, Jack almost needed to rest every few steps. Sylvia was not much better either. Fortunately, both of them finally found a temple to rest in and got a bed when it was dark. At night, they slept in the bunk beds. Moreover, it was a room where men and women were separated. It was very simple and crude. When they turned over, the bed made a creaking sound. However, they could not care too much at that moment. It was already good enough to have a place to rest. There were 7 people in Sylvia's room. 3 of them were pilgrims from India. The other one was a girl from Sichuan. Her face was yellowish and dark, which made her look old. Sylvia was so scared that she hurriedly took out a mirror to look at her face. She didn't notice it before, but now she suddenly realized that her face had been yellowish-black in just these few days. Her lips and cheeks were dry, and she was having a rosy cheeks due to the plateau. She thought of Richard, who was sent to the great Northwest by Aaron a few years ago. Back then, he looked like he had been through a lot. She felt despair, but when she saw the devout faces of the Indians, she solemnly told herself that pilgrims were sacred and that she shouldn't care about her appearance at this time. However, when she woke up the next morning and saw Jack, her heart was broken. She was dizzy from the climb the day before and did not notice it. Her once handsome-looking husband was gone. Her hubby, who had been slightly tanned in Samoa, was now even darker. His face was as dry as a terraced field. She looked at him and felt like crying. "Sylvia, what's wrong?" Jack was confused by her sad gaze. "Maybe I was moved when I saw so many devout pilgrims kowtowing to the mountain." Sylvia's lips twitched. Jack realized, "Yeah, I'm quite moved. Don't tell me you're going to kowtow around the mountain too." Sylvia could only sigh. "Damn you. By the way, why do you look so pale and have dark circles under your eyes? What time did you watch the stars last night?" Sylvia couldn't help but ask. Jack perked up when he heard that. "I observed it until 2 o'clock in the morning last night. I can see the stars much clearer here than in other places and found that I have a new understanding of the stars. I have to write a long thesis when I go back." Sylvia silently thought, how could he get such a deep understanding just by looking at the stars? She didn't know anything about that anyway, so she could only agree. "Uh-huh. Then it's not a wasted trip." "Sylvia, can we stay on the mountain for one more night?" Jack suddenly tugged at her sleeve and whispered, "We'll sleep in the tent tonight." "Okay." Sylvia clenched her teeth and agreed. She endured it for the sake of mankind's astronomical progress. The two of them stayed on top of Kailash for 3 days. When they went down the mountain, Sylvia's legs were shaking, and Jack was in an even worse condition. Because he didn't get enough rest from stargazing that night, he started to have a fever on the way back to Lhasa. Sylvia drove to Lhasa and admitted him to the hospital for 2 days. Jack, who had been recovered from the fever, felt very guilty and grabbed Sylvia's hand to apologize. "Sylvia, I'm sorry. It was supposed to be a honeymoon. It's all my fault that we're in such a state. Next time, I'll go with the team if I want to observe the stars." Sylvia shook her head with a bitter smile. "How can I be at ease with you like this? I am with you this time. You've been out on the plateau at night to watch the stars a few degrees below zero. What if I'm not around?" Jack lowered his eyelashes in silence. "Sometimes I can't help it. The environment in some stargazing places is indeed extreme. I'll reduce my trips to such places in the future." "Remember what you said. We'll buy some gifts for our family today and go back tomorrow." Sylvia touched his cheek after saying that. The next day, the plane landed at Rosewood City Airport after 4 hours of flight. They had too much baggage, so they had no choice. Aaron was busy working in his company. In the end, April took Little Apple along and came to pick them up with the car. She didn't want to bring Little Apple along, but Sylvia said that she would bring Little Apple a lot of beef jerky. So, he insisted on coming along to eat the beef jerky. Both of them waited at the airport for half an hour. When they finally saw Sylvia and Jack pushing a few suitcases out of the airport, the mother and son were both dumbfounded. About a week ago, they saw Sylvia and Jack's pictures. Sylvia was still standing by the lake in a colorful cotton shawl. She looked very charming and beautiful. Of course, the scenery was also beautiful. After asking where they were, Sylvia said that they were on the way to Kailash. At that time, April was very envious of them. She secretly thought that she would bring Aaron to Kailash next time, and Aaron agreed to that. However, it had only been a short while. How did both of them become like this? Their skin was dry and dark, and their skin blushed. Sylvia's dry hair looked like straws, and Jack, who used to look like he was only in his early 20s, looked even older than Aaron. April looked at them with a complicated gaze. Little Apple asked innocently, "Auntie, Uncle, did you go to Africa without letting me know? Is there yak meat in Africa?" Before Sylvia could speak, She felt as if thousands of arrows had pierced through her heart because of his words. Little Apple was gloomy. "Did you guys forget to buy me the yak meat?" Jack's face was slightly hot. He bent down and said gently, "We went to Tibet and brought you a lot of yak meat. It's in the luggage. Can I give it to you later?" "That's great!" Little Apple jumped up and down happily. "But is the sun always so hot in Tibet?" "My mom said that she and Dad are going to Tibet in a few days. Will they turn out like this?" After saying that, Little Apple was a little scared. He quickly held April's hand and said, "Mom, why don't you go after you attend my first grade entrance ceremony? If you become like Auntie, I'll lose my reputation if I bring you along." April pinched his cheek and said angrily, "Don't talk nonsense." She paused, then asked Sylvia, "Didn't I buy you sunscreen? You and Jack both look thinner. Didn't you eat well or sleep well?" Jack lowered his head and was too embarrassed to explain why their honeymoon had become like this. Sylvia said helplessly, "We stayed in Kailash for many days. The weather there was too cold and the ultraviolet rays were too strong. Plus, it was tough to move around the mountains, so we ended up like this." Little Apple nodded as if he understood. "No wonder you got darker. It's different from my parents' skin, which glows every time they secretly go on a trip without me." "Little brat, how many times have you poked fun at me today?" Sylvia bent down and rubbed his chubby face. Little Apple raised his hand and surrendered. "I'm sorry, Auntie. There are some benefits when you're dark, just like how you used to have a little freckle on your face. But now it's not visible anymore. Also, you used to always stay up late to work and have dark circles under your eyes. Now, all of them are gone. It's simply too magical." Sylvia was so angry that she almost screamed. This kid was just like his father. Not only did he hurt her by mentioning her past, but also her condition now. She shouldn't have brought him yak meat all the way. "Sure enough, you are your father's son. You are his biological son." Sylvia clenched her teeth and said, then she turned to April. "Sister-in-law, Kailash is such a nice place. It's so sacred. After going there, I feel like I've been bathed in the light of Buddha. I feel like I've been reborn and my soul has been cleansed. I feel like I can live another 500 years. You must go and see it. If you don't, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." April stared at Sylvia's dry cheeks for a while, then couldn't help herself from saying, "Sylvia, it's good that you're back. I'll give you a hydrating skincare set." Sylvia was speechless. When April drove back to the villa, it was already 6 o'clock. Mr. Maxwell had been waiting in the yard for a long time. When he saw them coming back, he was stunned for a moment, then hurriedly said, "It must be a long journey." Then he helped them carry their luggage upstairs. Sylvia threw herself on the sofa. Jackie, who had not seen its owner for some time, jumped onto the sofa enthusiastically and licked her cheek with all his might. "Oh, it's so dirty." Sylvia pushed Jackie away in disgust. Jackie wagged his tail sadly. Little Apple immediately hugged Jackie, feeling sorry for him. He complained, "Auntie, why are you so fierce to Jackie? He hasn't even seen you for a long time. Moreover, he licked your face until it wasn't so dry anymore." Sylvia was hurt again by his words. She didn't lie down anymore and went upstairs to take a shower. After taking a shower, she applied a layer of lotion to her skin. Then she dried her hair and applied essential oil to it. She even did a full set of skincare therapy for her face before going downstairs. Aaron was downstairs and had gotten off work. He planned to take his wife and son home after dinner. When he saw his sister, he wasn't surprised, but took out 2 cards from his wallet. "Don't say that your brother doesn't care about you. These are the salon cards I registered for you 2 days ago. Women shouldn't neglect themselves just because they're married.
After all, you're going to have a wedding during the summer vacation. I can't let my relatives think that you went on a mission in Africa and brought back an African husband."
Sylvia staggered on the stairs and barely managed to stand up. She clenched her teeth and glared at Aaron. Was it necessary for the father and son to take turns hurting her with their words?
"Do you think what I said doesn't make sense?" Aaron asked calmly. "If you don't want it, I'll give it to your sister-in-law."
"I want it, I want." Sylvia snatched the salon card. Jack scratched the back of his head in confusion and said, "She looks fine to me. I think Sylvia looks very beautiful like this." Aaron silently stared at his face for a few seconds, then waved his hand with a weird look in his eyes.
"No, I can't look at her anymore. It's too eye-catching. When I look at you, I feel like I'm the most handsome man in the world."
The others were speechless. Jack touched his face in a puzzle and then looked at his wife and asked,
"Sylvia, what's wrong with me?"
Sylvia coughed and said, "Nothing's wrong with you. Your skin's a little dry. I'll buy you some hydrating skincare later. Eat your food. You can leave after that, brother."
"I don't want to leave. Your sister-in-law wants to go to Kailash, so she wants to hear more about your trip."
Aaron glanced at his wife with a smile.
"Babe, should we start booking the plane tickets?"
April glanced at Sylvia and Jack gloomily and said, "Hubby, I think we should go somewhere else. Let's go to the hot spring in Japan." Aaron shook his head.
"The hot spring's too shallow compared to going to a place like Kailash. Kailash is one of the 4 sacred monuments of Buddhism. If you don't go, you'll regret it for the rest of your life."
"Yes, sister-in-law," Sylvia said. "You should go. If you don't go, you'll regret it." The corners of April's mouth twitched for a while, then she said, "Thank you, but I'll skip it. Actually, I don't believe in Buddhism. Let's go around Lhasa. My soul doesn't need to be cleaned. I'm cleansed by your brother every day. Hubby." After saying that, she looked at Aaron with a weak and helpless gaze. Aaron patted her head and whispered into her ear,
"Go back and make it up to me, and I will agree to your request. Otherwise, I will have no other option but to take you there."
April felt like crying. She knew what he was talking about. However, she had to finish what she had started. After dinner, Sylvia suddenly felt dizzy when she stood up. Fortunately, Jack quickly held her, preventing her from falling.
"Sylvia, what's wrong?"
Jack was a little flustered. "I don't know. I suddenly felt a little dizzy." Sylvia shook her head hard, but she still felt dizzy.
Aaron frowned and said, "Go to the hospital. Maybe you've been in Tibet too long and you didn't eat or sleep well, so you're not feeling well."
"It's okay," Sylvia waved her hand and said. "Maybe I didn't rest well or eat well. I'll be fine after taking some rest." "Ask the doctor to come over and take a look," April said worriedly.
"All right."
Aaron nodded and made a phone call. Aaron and April, who were about to leave, had no choice but to stay and wait for the doctor. About 40 minutes later, Doctor arrived in his car. As soon as he entered the door, he saw Sylvia's expression and said,
"You don't look well. Have you been too tired from your trip to Tibet?"
Jack felt guilty. If he hadn't insisted on going to Kailash, Sylvia might not have been so tired.
"It's all my fault. I had a fever not long after we returned from Kailash. Sylvia took care of me in the hospital for 2 days. I'm sure she didn't rest well."
Aaron immediately frowned.
"No wonder you guys delayed your return. You shouldn't have gone to that place if you weren't strong enough, and you shouldn't have stayed there for so long. You only cared about yourself. Didn't you think that you would make your wife tired?"
He rarely spoke harshly to Jack, but now he was angry. The plateau was not an ordinary place. Some people had accidentally lost their lives there. However, he knew his sister well. She was not particularly interested in places like Kailash. She was just there for sightseeing. Jack, on the other hand, was different. His original purpose was to look at the stars. Scientists like them often did not care about anything for the sake of scientific research. Even though it was for research, He did not agree with that method. Jack was reprimanded until his face was gloomy. He lowered his head and bit his lips. His eyelashes trembled slightly, and he was blaming himself. Sylvia could not bear to watch her husband in such a situation. "Forget about it, brother. It was my suggestion to go to Tibet. He also exercised hard before going, but he was not feeling well on the way back. Doctor, why don't you take my pulse? Do you need to prescribe some medicine?"
That's what I was thinking too. Give me your hand.
Doctor sat beside Sylvia and reached out to take her pulse. Half a minute later, he frowned deeply. A minute later, he took the pulse of her other hand, and his frown became deeper. Jack waited anxiously, but he did not dare to say anything, not wanting to disturb the doctor. Then the doctor did some more checkups and examined Sylvia. 2 minutes later, Doctor retracted his hand and his gaze was meaningful.
You guys are really lucky.
What? What's wrong? Jack stammered nervously. His lips were slightly pale. Is there something wrong with Sylvia's body? Is she in danger? Luckily, she came back in time and could be sent to the hospital for treatment. The corner of Sylvia's lips twitched. That can't be. The doctor didn't know whether to laugh or cry.
I say you're lucky because Mrs. Kipling might be pregnant. Fortunately, she has a good foundation. Otherwise, with such a tough trip to Nagari, it could have been a disaster. Furthermore, she was not able to rest well after being tired from traveling every day. If it were others, they would have already experienced a miscarriage. Although her pulse is weak, at least the fetus doesn't show any signs of miscarriages. Everyone was stunned. Jack was completely dumbfounded. Sylvia was in a daze as she touched her lower abdomen. It was flat, and she had lost weight because the journey was tough. However, she could not believe that there was a small life inside it. Doctor, you didn't misdiagnose, right? Sylvia stuttered. That's impossible. Am I that strong? I've been through so much recently when I was pregnant. Is my child that strong? Doctor smiled. Don't you believe in my medical skills? You are pregnant. It should be more than a month, but it's better to go to the hospital for an ultrasound to make sure the child's healthy.
Sylvia and Jack were both in a daze. Jack had only been back for more than a month. Both of them had planned to have a wedding first and then have a happy honeymoon for half a year. However, they didn't expect to be pregnant so soon. At that moment, April suddenly said mysteriously, "Pregnant for more than a month? Could it be that you were pregnant when you were in Samoa?" As she said that, Sylvia and Jack blushed at the same time. When they were in Samoa, they didn't have any desires except for the first time they met.
I didn't know that, Aaron said with a faint smile. You both seemed to be injured at that time, especially Sylvia. You even hurt her lower abdomen. You put in a lot of effort.
Sylvia was embarrassed. It wasn't what he thought it was. It wasn't. But how could she explain it? However, she suddenly remembered that Jack had taken some medicine at that time. If she conceived during that time, it wouldn't have affected the baby. Right? Her face turned pale again. It was hard to explain. April thought that Sylvia was embarrassed, so she comforted her. It's understandable. After all, you've been apart for so long and can't help yourselves.
I didn't mean anything, Aaron said faintly. You should be more careful next time. Your health comes first.
After saying that, he glanced at Jack and reminded him.
Don't just pay attention to your feelings.
Jack's face blushed. He wanted to hide, but he couldn't explain himself. All right, I'll go for a checkup first thing next morning. Sylvia asked vaguely. Doctor, the baby shouldn't have any malformations, right?
You're afraid that the baby won't develop well because you couldn't eat and sleep well in Tibet, right? The doctor asked with a smile. In fact, under normal circumstances, you might have a miscarriage. But apart from the weakness of your pulse, I don't see any signs of miscarriage. You should rest well during this period. Don't tire yourself. At the same time, keep up with the nutrition. Also, don't eat anything when you go for a checkup tomorrow morning."
After Doctor gave her instructions, April told a lot of things to take note of when pregnant before she left with Aaron and Little Apple. With that sudden occurrence, Sylvia was absent-minded and Jack was in a daze. He couldn't understand how he became a father. He had never come in contact with a creature like Little Apple who was always pestering him to build the Transformer armor. He had analyzed it with Little Apple. He couldn't make that kind of thing for a child, but the little guy wouldn't listen to him, so he was annoyed whenever he saw the kid. Would his baby be like this in the future? And would the baby take away her love for him? He hadn't had enough time with Sylvia.
"Sylvia,"
Jack leaned his head on Sylvia's shoulder.
"when you have a baby, will you love me more or will you love the baby more?"
Sylvia was worried, but when she heard that he was jealous, she was speechless.
"Is that something you should say as a father?"
Being scolded, Jack rubbed his short black hair.
"I'm not ready to be a father."
"I'm at a loss too," Sylvia muttered. "But since we're married, it's normal to have children. My classmates already have children. I'm just a little worried about whether this child is healthy or not. I hope it wasn't conceived when we were at Samoa's villa." Jack was so embarrassed that his face blushed.
"Are you afraid that others will know how we conceived it?"
Sylvia looked at him with a wry smile. "Did you forget that you took some medicine that time? It's very easy for a child to become deformed in that kind of situation." Jack was stunned and his face instantly turned pale. Before this, he was still worried that the child would take away her love for him and break up the sweet life between him and Sylvia. But all he felt was lingering fear at that moment. Although the child might only be a little being now and had just sprouted, he suddenly felt an indescribable panic. "It's all my fault. We should have taken birth control pills back then." Sylvia was also very frustrated. At that time, she had been busy arresting Manda. Besides, both of them were injured, so they did not have time to buy the medicine. Later, she had forgotten about that matter. "If it was that time, we could not take that risk."
What do you mean?"
Jack was at a loss.
"Do we have to abort it?"
"What if the baby is born deformed? It'll be crueler to give birth to it. Don't forget that I was hospitalized several times after that, and I took a lot of medicine." Sylvia had seen too many deformed babies that were caused by taking flu medicine or drinking alcohol. Jack was also silent, thinking about the possibility of losing the baby. He felt like 10,000 claws scratching on his heart. It hurt, but he could only comfort Sylvia. "Don't worry, we'll go for a checkup tomorrow." The two of them didn't sleep much that night. They had planned to sleep until the sky turned dark after returning from Tibet, but both of them had insomnia. Jack didn't sleep at all. At 6 o'clock, he started to get up and wash up, preparing to go to the hospital. When Mr. Maxwell got up to make breakfast, he was stunned to see both of them preparing to go out with dark circles under their eyes.
"Even if you were excited to have a baby, there's no need to go so early. The hospital is not open until 8:30 a.m. It won't take long to get to the hospital. Eat your breakfast first."
Jack and Sylvia looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They weren't happy at all. The two of them had been anxious the whole night and didn't sleep well, but they really couldn't tell outsiders about this. "Mr. Maxwell, we'll just go out and have some food," Sylvia said weakly. "And we might have to do a blood test. We'll have to do it on an empty stomach."
"Right, I almost forgot," Mr. Maxwell said with a smile. "Then be careful on the road."
When they left, Mr. Maxwell muttered,
"It's the first time these two kids have become parents. They were probably so excited that they didn't sleep at all."
When they arrived at the hospital, both of them were the first to see the obstetrician. The obstetrician first asked Sylvia to do a test and an ultrasound. The ultrasound showed that she was 5 weeks pregnant. Sylvia heaved a huge sigh of relief when she saw the results. If it was that night in Samoa, it would have been 7 weeks. It seemed that she conceived after she came back. However, both of them were still a little uneasy. When they took the results to the doctor looked at the results of the test. He smiled and said,
"The baby's quite healthy, but the mother is experiencing slight anemia and low blood sugar. Take some supplements when you get back. Miscarriage will easily happen in the first 3 months if you can't keep up with your nutrients."
Sylvia asked, "Doctor, am I 5 weeks pregnant?"
"Isn't it written on the sonogram?" The doctor smiled. "Next time, come for the monthly checkup on time."
"Thank you, doctor." Sylvia was very grateful. When she came out with the test results, her legs were trembling.
"Sylvia, how is it?"
Jack, who was waiting outside, came up and held her nervously.
"The baby?"
"It wasn't conceived on that day," Sylvia said and hugged him tightly. "Thank God! I'm 5 weeks pregnant. I got pregnant after returning to Rosewood City."
That's great."
Jack's nervous face turned red as he stuttered. "I knew that the babies who went to Tibet were not ordinary babies." Sylvia chuckled. "That's true."
Yes.
Jack nodded his head vigorously and giggled foolishly.
"And Buddha must have blessed us as well. You wanted to go to a divine mountain, so we climbed while we begged. Didn't you say that you prayed for your family when you climbed?"
Sylvia was slightly stunned, and she suddenly lowered her head in embarrassment. "Actually, when I spent the night at the temple in Kon Rinpoche, I begged the Bodhisattva, hoping that in the future, the two of us could grow old together and have a child. But I begged for next year, and I didn't expect the child to be given away so quickly." Jack was stunned. He had never thought of such a thing.
"Sylvia, do you like children?"
"I do," Sylvia nodded. Her eyes were a little lonely. "All these years, when you weren't around, I saw my friends getting married and having children. I was actually quite envious." Jack's gaze softened. So Sylvia wanted to be a mother. Since that was the case, then he would also be a father. "What about you? You don't want to?" Sylvia raised her head and asked.
"I haven't thought about that for the time being. Right?"
Jack touched the back of his head in embarrassment.
"I want to spend more time with you. After all, we've been separated for too long. But if you're pregnant, then so be it. It might be nice to have another little life. I'll be a good father, and then I'll teach it to be a better scientist than I am. Okay?"
He suddenly became excited.
"Yeah, why did I forget that the most important thing to contribute to the motherland is to reproduce and nurture better scientists for the motherland?"
You're not going to have a lot of children all of a sudden, are you?" Sylvia suddenly became nervous. "I was planning to have 1.
"That's not true. We can't focus on quantity. What we rely on is quality."
Jack patted his chest and straightened his back.
"If we give birth to 1, the outstanding genes will be concentrated on one body. If we give birth to more, the outstanding genes will be scattered. Perhaps it will not be so outstanding. I understand this logic."
"Do you understand? You know nothing. How could there be such a perverse logic? Your mother is a biologist after all. Do you have any scientific basis for saying such things?" What if our children inherit more from me and are not that sensitive to science?" Sylvia said tactfully. It should be that they were not sensitive at all, but she did not want to discourage Jack's enthusiasm. Jack was stunned. Sylvia quickly patted his shoulder and said, Don't worry. Although she might not become a scientist like you, she can become a police officer. She can rush into space and become an astronaut or something like that. Or she can become a brave and battle-ready policewoman. In any case, outstanding genes like ours all contribute to the country. It's just that the content of the contribution is different." Jack was stunned by her words. After a while, he nodded in a daze. "That's fine too. Your genes are also very outstanding." Yes, Sylvia nodded. But for now, let's feed our country's hope for the future. I think it might be hungry. Jack thought for a few seconds before he reacted. Oh, see, I forgot. Let's go. Let's eat breakfast. Let's go to your favorite breakfast restaurant. Flashback to Kiara's life. Rosewood City High People's Court. A lawsuit was nearing its end. The autumn sun shone through the windows, landing on the fair face of the Chief Judge, Brexter Williams, who was in the middle of the high platform. The lines on the side of his face were cold and hard, but he was still handsome and smooth. Even if he lowered his head, the bridge of his nose was still perfectly straight. However, the aura around him exuded an inviolable dignity and nobility. At this moment, his lips were perfectly shaped as he announced the outcome of this trial. The defendant caused the death of his wife in the parking lot. His crime has already violated the criminal law and constitutes the crime of causing a traffic accident. However, due to a problem with the brakes of the car, he committed a negligent crime. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison with a suspended sentence of 4 years. I'm not convinced. Before he could finish the sentence, the plaintiff stood up from his chair and roared. That bastard clearly did it on purpose. Why is he only sentenced to 3 years? This kind of person should die. Silence, Brexter warned coldly. Plaintiff, this is a court. If you don't keep quiet, your actions will constitute contempt of court. If you have any objections to the trial, you can continue to appeal, but this time the court will uphold the original sentence. Uncle, calm down. Kiara hurriedly went over to pull her client back. The plaintiff gritted his teeth in anger until Brexter finished reading the final result and stood up to leave. He suddenly pushed Kiara away. Stay away! This is all your fault! If I knew this, I wouldn't have hired you. You are useless. I've seen so many lawyers, but I've never seen someone as trashy as you. My daughter was clearly killed by that guy, but in the end, he was only sentenced to 3 years. If you can't bring the criminal to justice, what kind of lawyer are you? Do you know that in order to fight this lawsuit, our entire family has basically gone bankrupt? Kiara was forcefully pushed onto the table behind her. After a long while, she couldn't straighten her back due to the pain. However, when she looked up, her client had already run over to make trouble, but his wife forcefully pulled him back. It wasn't until the intern Sasha hurriedly held her up that she asked, Miss Kell, are you all right? Kiara pushed her lips and shook her head. At this moment, the defendant's lawyer walked over with a smile and said, Miss Kell, you, who is known as the undefeatable legend in the industry. Aren't you any better? I only realized that you're just so-so when I really fought with you. Tisk, I really am sorry. This is already the second trial. I think you guys should give up too. To be honest, up until now, we're still very willing to settle things with you guys privately. After all, your client's family situation is too miserable. It's better to leave some money for their retirement to live the rest of their lives. Sasha was so angry that she spat at his back. Rubbish! Everyone in the industry knows he specializes in black-hearted cases. Miss Kell, I told you, you shouldn't have taken this case. This time the presiding judge is Brexter Williams. Our law firm's lawyers have never won a case against him. His horoscope is not on good terms with us. Kiara was originally filled with depression, but after hearing her words, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. As lawyers, do we still believe in superstitious things like Character 8? Sasha shrugged. Then how do you explain the reason why we've been defeated by Brexter time and time again? Recently, we've been losing cases, and if this continues, fewer and fewer people will represent our firm. Kiara was also flustered at the mention of this. Let's go. Let's leave this place first. I can't stand staying anywhere Brexter has breathed for even a moment. Sasha picked up the documents and followed. She took small steps and said, Miss Kell, don't say that. Actually, Judge Williams is quite handsome. It's not an exaggeration to say that he's the youngest. Most handsome judge in the open a court session. I'm still willing to stay in the same place with him. Watching him at a court session is like watching a movie with a hot lead. Before she could finish her sentence, Kira gave her a rude look and said, Yes, this movie will affect your financial income. We've worked hard for a month to prepare for the lawsuit, and now your bonus has been canceled because of the loss of the lawsuit. Sasha caught up with her and cried without tears. Being handsome is nothing. I'd rather go back and draw a circle to curse him. As she walked towards the elevator, Kira stopped in her tracks as she passed by the washroom. Wait for me downstairs. I need to go to the washroom. After going to the washroom, Kira received a call from her best friend, Ariana. What happened? Did you win the lawsuit? Do you want to treat me to a big meal tonight? I had a fight with my hubby and I don't want to see his ugly face at home. Shall we go out and have some fun? I'm not in the mood. I lost the lawsuit. Kira opened her makeup bag gloomily and started to touch up her makeup. As a female lawyer, she had to maintain her exquisite makeup wherever she went. That's impossible. Ariana was surprised. The lawsuit that Kira fought had recently been on the news and was quite popular. The defendant had evidence of having a mistress. Then it's clearly a case of intentional wife murder. At the very least, you'll have to be locked up for a few decades. Bullshit, Kira cursed angrily. In the end, he somehow managed to get a report of a brake failure, which was classified as a negligent crime. Ariana instantly understood that there was a huge difference between a negligent crime and a premeditated murder. That doesn't make sense. With your eloquence and quick thinking, you should be able to turn the situation around within minutes, right? That's right. I wanted to try and convince the jury, but my mouth was already dry. Many of the jurors were moved, but Brexter was unmoved. Kira sighed. This guy is a typical cold-blooded, heartless, and inhumane person. Normally that warm-hearted card wouldn't work on him. I curse this kind of person for being cuckolded, cheated on, and having a useless sex life in the future. Even if he divorces his wife, he will definitely be stripped of all his assets by a woman. Kira cursed as she applied her lipstick. At this moment, she suddenly saw a figure standing at the entrance of the toilet. He looked a little familiar, but his figure was tall and straight. His gaze was as sharp as a blade. When she saw that face clearly, Kira's hand trembled. The lipstick on her hand was directly applied to her lips, drawing a bright red line on her face. At that moment, Ariana was still sighing over the phone. Isn't it just losing a lawsuit? It still needs to escalate to a personal attack. Miss Kell, you fully exposed your narrow-minded character. Kira hurriedly hung up the phone, her tone embarrassed. Chief Judge Williams. Brexter's clear gaze paused on the lipstick bar on her mouth for a second, and he coldly opened his thin lips. According to the law on administrative penalties for public security, anyone who publicly insults others or fabricates facts to slander others shall be detained. If the circumstances are serious, they shall be detained for not less than 5 days, but no more than 10 days. Insulting a government official in a gross manner or seriously disturbing public order may constitute the crime of picking quarrels and provoking trouble. The corner of Kira's mouth twitched. This guy really deserved to be a judge. He was really freaky. Kira, please watch your words. Brexter's cold face finally cracked. I have no interest in you. Don't flatter yourself. Who knows? Kira curled her lips, causing the red bar on her lips to become even more obvious. Brexter couldn't take it anymore. Please look at yourself in the mirror first. Kira chuckled. There's no need. I look at myself in the mirror every day. I'm confident in my beauty. Brexter's lips twitched. Kira's smile deepened when she saw that he was silent. Oh, right. Due to your status, you might be punished more severely. What a coincidence that we both committed the same crime. Will we spend 5 days in prison together? Fate, but no matter what, I'm just a small lawyer. I can't be compared to you. Brexter watched her lips move, turning to leave with an ugly expression on his face. Hey, don't go, Kira quickly followed. Is it too late to escape now?
Kira, enough is enough.
Brexter turned back, his cold and charming eyes sweeping over her.
If you had such a tongue in court, you wouldn't have lost the case, and you wouldn't have to resort to insulting the presiding judge behind his back to vent.
Kira blushed. If you hadn't been so cold, you might not have lost the case. The law is merciless, but people are kind. Brexter turned around this time and looked straight at her.
I'm a judge. I only make conclusions from the perspective of the law, just like how you're a lawyer. You only think about what's best for your client. You think your client was deliberately killed by her husband, but you don't have enough evidence. Without solid evidence, the crime is not established. You're not qualified, so don't blame others. I really doubt how you got to where you are today. Is it good luck? He left without looking back.
Kira was embarrassed and angry. She glared at his back and said snappily, Didn't you want to go to the toilet? Aren't you going? Don't get urethritis from holding it in. Brexter's retreating figure froze. A few seconds later, he left with his long legs. Kira snorted coldly at his back and muttered, I knew you didn't want to go to the washroom. Maybe you just wanted to sneak into the ladies' room. She suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. Luckily, she had come out early, otherwise he might have seen everything. She had better stay away from him in the future. She hurried downstairs. Sasha had been waiting for her by the car. When she saw Kira rushing over, she glared at her strangely. Let's go, get in the car. Kira used her keys to unlock her BMW. Sasha pointed at the corner of her mouth awkwardly. Miss Kell, your mouth? Kira's heart skipped a beat. She quickly took out a mirror to take a look. A red line on her lips slid down to the right side of her nose. It was especially eye-catching. She suddenly remembered that the person beside her looked at her several times when she was taking the elevator downstairs. So she had been facing off against Brexter for such a long time in the toilet. Yet she still had confidently said in front of him that she had confidence in her beauty. Kira instantly had the thought of passing out. As a strict lawyer, it had been a long time since she had been so humiliated. Sasha braced herself and said obsequiously, Miss Kell, it's all right. You're so good-looking. Even if you draw a pecking opera face on your face, you'd still look good. Don't say any more. The memory's unbearable. Kira got into the car sadly and quickly wiped off her lipstick with a tissue. Right now, she was only praying that she would never run into Brexter again. Because she was in a bad mood after losing the lawsuit, Kira rested at home for the whole night before heading to the office the next morning. Just as she made a cup of coffee, her partner Caleb rushed over in a hurry.
Kira, have you seen the news? Yesterday your lawsuit was on the news.
Kira's hand that was holding the coffee cup paused. She had already expected this. The internet is too developed now. Her client's death by her husband was a big gimmick for the reporters. Not long after the incident, she was taken over by many media platforms at the same time. This case also received a lot of attention from many people in society. She had expected that if she lost the case, she would be trolled to death by people outside, so she did not even open the news app in the morning. What did you say? At this time, there was no way to avoid it. Kira sighed softly and sat back on the leather chair. She said weakly, Are they all scolding me for not being capable? Caleb's gaze revealed sympathy.
It's worse than this. Her father was interviewed by the reporters and said that he regretted finding you to fight the case. He even said that you were not capable at all. It was all because he believed your words that he believed you wholeheartedly. In the end, you only knew how to scam money. After you scammed the couple until they had nothing, you even lost the lawsuit. However, what made them even sadder was that the murderer of her daughter did not receive the punishment he deserved. Now the netizens are all scolding you. There are even people who spread your name, the address of the law firm, the graduate school, and your phone number on the internet. Kiera lowered her head and took a sip of coffee in silence. Her tongue was bitter as hell.
Caleb looked at her furiously.
This client of yours is a really bad guy. Something happened to his family. He lost the first trial and ran out of money. He went around looking for people to fight a lawsuit, but the amount of money he paid was pitifully low. No one was willing to. You agreed to take on this lawsuit because you felt sorry for them. In the end, you lost and the word spread that you cheated them of their money. What did you cheat for? After working hard for a month, you earned a few thousand from them. With your status, what's the difference between this and a legal aid case?
Kiera spread her hands and smiled helplessly. After so many years of litigation, don't you often meet such people? After you win, you'll be thanked profusely. But after you lose, you'll be scolded until you're drenched in blood. Caleb slammed the table angrily.
But I've never seen such a shameless person.
Because we haven't dealt with such people for a long time, Kiera shrugged. Ever since Kenneth Roald's case allowed us to gain a firm foothold in the legal world, we've always received at least a few $100,000 in one case. The reason why I took their case this time was to wash away the negative image that my sister's matter has brought to me. I have my own selfish motives. Perhaps this is retribution.
I already said that you shouldn't have taken this case, Caleb sighed. Your sister's matter has her own fault. You were only acting as a sister and a lawyer. Those people who blamed you know nothing.
I don't want this law firm, which we worked so hard to run, to have a bad reputation because of me alone. But it's obvious that I've made things worse. Kiera smiled bitterly. This case is much noisier than Ella's. I'll definitely make things difficult for the company. If the situation gets out of control, I'm willing to withdraw my shares and leave the company.
Don't talk nonsense, Caleb quickly interrupted. If you leave, how will the law firm continue to operate? Others may not know. But don't you think I know that the law firm's current status is all because of you? It's all because you have a wide network and you're on good terms with President Bennett and Richard. You don't have to worry. With these two friends, their companies will dump a lot of cases on you. Anyway, you won't starve to death. If you leave, they definitely won't cooperate with me. I'll suffer even more.
You don't beat around the bush at all. Kiera shook her head and picked up her coffee cup again. Her expression was solemn. I'm afraid that this will bring trouble to Aaron and Richard. There are a lot of public artists down there. I might be able to dig out some clues from the lawyer letters I've sent to some celebrities. I'm worried that the celebrities I've worked with will be affected. Caleb's heart skipped a beat at her words.
I'll quickly go and find those netizens who spread your private information.
However, he still arrived too late. There were too many people who had nothing better to do. The matter of Kiera's sister Ella being a mistress was once again exposed. The matter of Kiera suing Ella for compensation made some people even more indignant. There were even people who openly slandered Kiera and Ella as a mistress on the internet. Following that, the matter of Kiera acting as a lawyer for famous artists such as Jennifer and Winnie was also exposed. As a result, some netizens began to question the character of those two celebrities. Some celebrities quickly canceled their collaboration with the law firm and began to distance themselves from her. Kiera personally made a phone call to apologize. Winnie, I'm really sorry. I've implicated you for no reason. At this point, it's better for you to publicly terminate your collaboration with me. Kiera, there's no need to publicly announce it, Winnie said gently. If the netizens want to reprimand me, go ahead. A mere civil case won't affect my current status. Thank you so much. Kiera was especially grateful. But in the current situation, I don't think I'm suitable to represent you in your case for the time being. That's good too. Winnie also understood that now wasn't the time to act against the wind. Don't worry. I asked Jeffrey to look for you for some business cases. I still believe in your ability. Besides, no lawyer can win forever. There are too many things happening on the internet every day. After this, things will get better." Kira was slightly relieved. Although there were too many malicious people on the internet, she still had real friends in her life. The next day, she went to Splingo for a meeting with Aaron and Richard. In the conference room, Richard said with concern,
Kira, you haven't slept well in the past 2 days. Do you need help? Your photo has been posted on the internet. You need to be careful.
Kira looked serious. Although she had started to sue those who had spread her personal information, the police needed time to build a case, and some of the information had already been spread. That was the most troublesome part. Aaron rubbed the space between his eyebrows and said, "You've had a really bad year. I thought that Richard was going to get married and that you would find a boyfriend as soon as possible this year. However, seeing how unlucky you are, I don't think you'll be able to get a boyfriend even if I forced you to." Kira pressed her lips. Was he trying to comfort her, or was he trying to stab her in the back? Richard slammed the table and said unhappily,
"Aaron, Kira's already having a hard time in her career, and you still want to stab her in the back? Is that necessary?"
Aaron was a little confused.
"You didn't hear the concern in my words?"
Richard choked. No one could hear it. Aaron crossed his hands and said,
"Go visit the cathedral when you're free." "Do you believe in such things?"
Richard was surprised. Aaron shrugged and said,
"I don't really believe in it, but aren't women superstitious? Just take it as a walk and enjoy the scenery."
Richard was a little speechless. Kira was silent for a moment, then said, "I'd better stay out of the limelight for now, at least for the next 2 months. I'm not suitable to take on new cases. I haven't rested for a long time. I'll go abroad and take a break." Richard heaved a sigh of relief.
"It's good that you think so. Don't worry. I've already told the news media to stop writing about you for the time being. It'll be fine after this. You can spend some time with your family. You've been too tense over the past few years."
Kira smiled bitterly and said sarcastically, "You're still spending time with your family? My parents only know how to argue with me now." Richard frowned. He vaguely knew that Kira had fallen out with her parents ever since Ella was sent to the mental hospital. "How?" Kira's face was full of sadness.
"Then find a boyfriend,"
Aaron added quietly. Kira was speechless. "Bennett, didn't you just say that I'm unlucky this year? I can't even find a man." Aaron turned his pen in his hand and said,
"You can't give up just because you can't find a man. There's still hope."
Kira didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "It's so rare that you've been considering whether I have a boyfriend. Have you changed since you became a father?" Aaron remained silent for a few seconds and said,
"Because now that I feel that marriage is pretty good. I've been working hard for so many years and finally found a direction and a reason. As friends, I sincerely hope that you can find happiness. It's too lonely to be alone."
Kira suddenly felt warm. She turned to Richard and said, "This is the first time I felt that Bennett is so human-like."
"Yeah, you weren't human in the past. You even had a crush on him for so long. I don't know if you're blind or if there's something wrong with your brain," Richard sneered.
Kira felt awkward. She couldn't bear to look back at the past. After thinking about it, she felt that there might be something wrong with her brain. "Well, it's getting late. I'm leaving now. I suddenly want to go to France for a walk." After she left, Aaron couldn't help but say to Richard,
"She wants to go to France alone. In that kind of place, there are couples everywhere. Wouldn't she be looking for trouble if she went?"
"Yeah," Richard empathized with him.
"Why don't we introduce her to someone? Do you know any good men around you?"
Aaron thought for a moment, then asked,
"Brexter?"
He paused for a moment, then said,
"I think he's the only one who knows better and isn't married yet. He's indeed a good man, and he's a judge and a lawyer. If you meet him, he'll definitely be furious. In the end, he'll pull out his sword and kill us both. Richard interrupted him disapprovingly. Forget it. I've met Brexter a few times. Every time I see him, I feel like I'm facing a mean criminal law book. I don't want to deal with him even if I'm a man, let alone Kiera. Aaron sighed. Actually, it wasn't like this before. Maybe his fiancée ran away with someone. Even if I were his fiancée, I would run away. Kiera had no idea that there were two men behind her who were worried about introducing her to someone. After she returned, she applied for a visa to France and stayed there for half a month. It was not an exaggeration to say that she was really bored. All these years she had been busy with work. In her free time for the past 2 years, she had been in a couple of relationships. However, after dating for a short period of time, she realized that they were either incompatible in character or outlook on life. Now that she suddenly had free time, she suddenly realized that her life was really boring without a job. Her friends around her had long gotten married and had children. Everyone had their own family. Sometimes sitting by the Seine River at night gave her a lonely feeling. Once she posted a picture on her social media. In the end, she was accidentally caught by her aunt, who immediately called her. "Why did you go to France? Are you alone?" "Yeah," Kiera smiled. "Auntie, do you need something from France?" Her aunt sighed. "Need what? I'm going to die from anger. You've been through so much recently and your parents don't care at all. You're already 29 this year. You're still wandering around alone. I'll be back soon to arrange a blind date for you." Kiera had a headache. She should have blocked her aunt. "Auntie, Shut up," she interrupted her. "You're not allowed to reject me again this time. Kiera, I know you are capable. Others may not understand you, but this time, you, a woman, encountered such a situation for no reason. You don't even have someone to rely on. You can't do this anymore. In the past, you rejected me again and again, but you have to agree this time. Otherwise, I won't recognize you as my niece." Kiera's eyes heated up. She could feel a strong sense of kinship with her aunt. She bit her lips and did not say anything. "Come back in 3 days. Don't worry. I will definitely find you a good partner. I don't want anyone else who is crooked, and he will definitely be handsome." Kiera didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Actually, I'm not that obsessed with looks." "All right, you aren't obsessed with looks, but since your time has already been wasted, you have to find someone who is handsome and capable."